A very nice day to you all. I am Bindu. Hope you all are doing well. Today, we will discuss on the topic price and cost of living. Have you heard people talking about how prices of things are going up and how it is causing problems for them? Why do people get upset and worried when prices rise? Does this happen with most things or just a few? Does it affect everyone in the same way? These are some of the things we will talk about in this chapter. Learning outcomes. Family budget. How are the prices fixed by a seller or producer? Who is affected the most by the rising cost of living? Which groups can earn more money when there is inflation? How is the wholesale price index different from the consumer price index? How is food inflation different from consumer price indices? What are the uses of the CPI? Role of government in regulating prices. Keywords. Consumption. The action of using up a resource. Inflation. Inflation is a general increase in prices. Consumer. A person who purchases goods and services for personal use. Poverty. The state of being extremely poor. Wholesale price index. Goods that are sold in bulk and traded between organizations instead of consumers. Let's look at the concept map. Family budget. Your parents make money by working in different jobs like farming, construction, selling vegetables or groceries, or working in an office, a shop, or a factory. They buy things for the house and spend money on household needs. Sometimes they have to borrow money. They plan how to spend their money and make a budget. Every family makes a budget, whether written or mental. Let's look at the budget of this family as an example. This is the monthly budget of a family that sells vegetables in the market. The family's January budget is Rs 10,000 in earnings and Rs 12,500 in expenditure. They spend on food, rent, school fees, medicines, transportation, and daily needs. They borrowed Rs 2,500 from relatives. Changes in prices can affect a family's budget. Let us take another. Look at this family's budget. This month, their landlord increased the rent to Rs 2,500. Additionally, bus fares and petrol prices increased, for which they had to spend Rs 2,000 per month on transportation. Because of this, their cost of living has increased by Rs 2,500. How can they manage this without earning more money? If they have savings, they can use that. Otherwise, they have to borrow from friends or relatives. However, they will have to repay them with interest. If they borrow from close relatives, they may not have to pay interest. But if they borrow from a money lender, they will have to repay the borrowing with interest. If the interest is rupees 3, for every rupees 100, they would have to pay an additional rupees 75 monthly. Let us say that this family can only repay after 6 months. This means they would have to repay rupees 2500 plus rupees 450, which is a total of rupees 2950. To adjust their budget, they can reduce spending on trips, food, mobile phones, etc. This lowers their standard of living due to the increased cost of living. Inflation particularly affects those with fixed incomes, pushing them further into poverty. Rising prices affect consumption and expenses on various items. How are the prices fixed by a seller or producer? Producers consider the cost of making or producing goods or providing services like labor and man-labors. They also think about how much people want the product. If there is a big demand existing for the product, they increase the price to make more money. They also look at what other companies are doing to stay competitive. Who is affected the most by the rising cost of living? People with fixed incomes such as pensioners and daily wage earners are affected the most by the rising cost of living. They are forced to cut down on their consumption, pushing them further into poverty. They can adjust their budget by reducing expenses like transportation and food. This decrease in consumption leads to a lower standard of living due to the increased cost of living. Which groups can earn more money when there is inflation? Some groups like government workers and business owners can still earn more money during inflation. They get extra payments or raise prices to cover the higher cost of living. Rich people and corporate workers are less affected. How is the wholesale price index different from the consumer price index? Wholesale price index WPI and consumer price index CPI are different types of price indexes. The wholesale price index WPI includes all goods and their wholesale rate changes, while the consumer price index CPI measures changes in prices of selected consumer goods at retail price. In India, different CPIs are published for various groups. How is food inflation different from consumer price indices? Food inflation is the increase in prices of food items. It is measured using the food price index FPI, which includes the wholesale prices of food materials like rice, wheat, vegetables and meat. Consumer Price Indices (CPIs) measure changes in prices of selected consumer goods. Different CPIs are published in India for different types of families as their consumption patterns vary. CPIs are used to calculate government employee benefits, revise wage rates, and estimate poverty levels. What are the uses of the CPI? The CPI is used to measure changes in prices of selected consumer goods. In India, different CPIs are published for industrial workers, urban, non-manual employees, and agricultural laborers. This is because different types of families consume different goods. CPIs are used to calculate government employee DA, revise wage rates, and estimate poverty levels in India. Inflation is measured based on CPI changes. Role of government in regulating prices. The government regulates prices to prevent excessive, uncontrolled accumulation gathering of goods and ensure affordable discount prices for essential items. Traders must sell these goods at set prices or face penalties. Certain items receive subsidies and are sold under an administrative price mechanism system. The Reserve Bank of India controls money circulation by regulating banks and interest rates. This decreases consumption and leads to lower prices. The government may also impose taxes to reduce people's purchasing power and increase prices. Conclusion: the cost of living is the amount of money needed to cover basic expenses such as housing, food, taxes and healthcare in a certain place or a period.